Hey everybody, welcome back to Walking with Jesus Daily. This is a recording for day 331, and we are continuing on studying the lives of the disciples that have turned into apostles. What's the difference? A disciple is one who chooses to follow Jesus. An apostle is one who is sent by Jesus to go and proclaim the gospel. And that's why we are called disciples. You may have felt a call to go. You may feel like the words of God have called you to go. I prefer that you guys do whatever you want, but my preference is, and when I read things, I believe that no matter how far you've gone or who all you've taught or what all you've done, you are a disciple and not an apostle. There will be people that will argue that, but that's okay. Let's hit James today. We hit Peter and we hit Andrew, and we know where they went or have an idea. So let's move on. I find it interesting. It's not that there was a favoritism or mistreatment or whatever. It's just that of the people that Jesus picked, they were kind of picked for a specific reason. And I find it very interesting that two sets of brothers are in this. Peter, Andrew, James, and John, the sons of Zebedee here. And I find it interesting, too, that it is believed, and it looks like that's to be true, that James and John are cousins of Jesus. To one extent or the other, I believe they were at least a decade younger than him, but I could be wrong. It appears as though with Peter being the only one married, everyone else being younger and unmarried, but it appears as though that James was the brother of John, and John was often referred to as the disciple that Jesus loved. That would be interesting, right? To be James, and for your brother to be known as the one who Jesus loves. Y'all have your favorite cousin or your favorite family member, that one person that you just seem to get along with so well, and you guys click so well, and you're always super excited to see. It's not that you don't like your other cousins or family members. It's just that there's that one that you seem to really get along with. And perhaps in this instance, that was John for Jesus. Did not give James a lesser role, just a different role. And that's what we have to remember in life and in the way that we go about doing things. Jesus was not their parent, so this is not a parenting thing. But this is very interesting to think about. Now, when we read about James, what's interesting, and I'm going to mention this in the next audio recording as well, is that James and John were brothers. And James is believed to have been, and we read about him being the very first one to be martyred, and John being the only one not martyred. So the very first disciple to be put to death, James, his brother John, was the very last one to die. And these two guys grew up together, and they worked together. They were fishermen together. So you would think that might be a little difficult for John. But in this instance, we'll look at James, the first to be put to death. King Herod had him killed by the sword in Jerusalem. We can read about this in Acts chapter 12. There are some non-biblical traditions about James, many believing or it being taught that he did things in places that he did not, in places that he was not. When you're dead, at least in this point, that you were dead. So we'll just kind of let that there are some that believe that even though there's some that believe that James went to Spain, even though we don't have proof of that, and that's okay. Remember, there were two James. All right, there was the son of Alphaeus, and there was the sons of thunder, if you will, James and John. And we're talking about the sons of thunder, James and John. We will look in this other. It says that talks about doesn't really make mention of James in this one. So let's go to Acts chapter 12 and read about him. I'm in between different writers of the, what the apostles did, and using some church tradition and some things outside of the Bible to try to get an idea of where they went and what they did. Again, a lot of this could just be just that, tradition. And a lot of it could be 100% true. I can't tell you, I wasn't there. But we will go read Acts chapter 12, which we're going to be covering next year. But it says, in starting verse 1, about that time, Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. In verse 2, it says, he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. And when he saw that it pleased the Jews, he proceeded to arrest Peter also. This was during the days of unleavened bread. And when he had seized him, he put him in prison, delivering him over to 4 squads of soldiers to guard him, intending after the Passover to bring him out to the people. So Peter was kept in prison, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church. I find it interesting that these things are mentioned. You have this very short excerpt about James being killed. And you've got this time. I do want to read this from 11. All right. It says, now in these days, prophets came down from Jerusalem to Antioch, and one of them, named Agabus, stood up and foretold by the Spirit that there would be a great famine over all the world. This took place in the days of Claudius. So the disciples determined, everyone according to his ability, to send relief to the brothers living in Judea. And they did so, sending it to the elders by the hand of Barnabas and Saul. And then it says, about that time, Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. So interesting enough, James being the very first person to be put to death by the sword because of the king. Why? Who knows, right? But we know that Herod was attacking the people in the church and put to death James. So we don't have a whole lot more information about James as far as where he went. He was executed by Herod around 44 AD, and almost as short as the one about Judas. So the lesson that we can take from James, I believe, is pretty easy. James was was one that Jesus called to witness a lot of things that he did. James was the one that was called to be by Jesus' side in a lot of things. James was the brother of John, as well as most likely a cousin to Jesus. And James was the first one to die in 44 AD, and that was some 22 years, give or take, before Peter was executed, and maybe close to 30 or so years, or maybe more, before his brother John died. So, interesting things to think about James, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.